Hello and welcome back to the Sports Brief Podcast. Colton Hall here, co-host Tristan Rancor could not make it tonight, but we still have Mr. Garrett Gronlund. How you doing, big guy?
Good. Glad to finally be on.
Yeah, I'm glad to get you on. It was kind of funny because every time, this guy, honestly, every couple of weeks, wants me to give him my top 10 favorite, or top 10 ranking for college football. And man, I just don't know. Like, I'm going to be real with you. Like, I think that LSU is going to be the hardest team to beat, but I mean, from what I've seen, Minnesota still doesn't deserve a top 10 bid. So I don't know. Kind of something we talked about there. Do you want to give us your top 10 now since you're already on?
Oh man, I had a list. Let me go check it. Oklahoma got snubbed again, by the way. Just so we're clear on that. I don't agree with them putting Penn State still above Minnesota. I think that I saw that and I was like, that just doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
But let me find it here because I did have my list.
Okay. In the meantime, we're also going to cover a couple of different things on Myles Garrett suspension. Time for the Bears to move on from Mitch Trubisky, Lamar Jackson, and the MVP discussion. Offensive and defensive rookies of the year, we're also going to talk about the Vikings and the Raiders. So the first thing you can do is start by subscribing to everything that we put out. Make sure that you guys can get all those funny videos and whatnot. Okay, so you got your list in front of you, big guy?
I do.
Okay.
At number 10, I have Georgia. Good team. They've got, a good couple wins there. But their loss is at home to a 4-6 South Carolina team that is very bad. And in college football, you can't lose at home. You can be forgiven for losing on the road, but you cannot be forgiven for losing at home, especially to just an absolute atrocious team like South Carolina. I've got Penn State in the 9 spot. I got Minnesota in 8. Alabama 7, Utah 6. I got Oklahoma in 5. Oregon's my 4, Clemson 3, Ohio State 2, and as you said, LSU's your number 1. LSU's my number 1. I don't think anybody, even though Ohio State has played absolutely phenomenal on both sides of the ball, LSU, just what they've done against their competition just puts them at number 1 for me.
Absolutely. And, it's kind of a funny thing. I think I saw a video on Twitter the other day about how their coach, LSU's coach, was saying that they were going to be back. And the way that they've played this year, I think in my modest opinion, I believe they deserve a little bit more respect than people are giving them because, if you can beat an Alabama team that is consistently in the national championship or in the conversation for the national championship, they deserve a lot of respect. So I had my top 3. Obviously it started with LSU. I was gonna start with them, Ohio State, and then Clemson. I still think as a Minnesota fan, a diehard Minnesota fan of most sports, mostly the Vikings. I just really hope that Minnesota can kind of run with this. And I was on Corey Foss's podcast, I believe last week, and I was talking about it. I just hope that they can use this somehow. If they get to the Rose Bowl or able to do something that way, I just hope they can use it because you want to talk about recruiting, setting up a program. That's my hopeful. And me being a Minnesota Vikings fan, been heartbroken a lot. You being an Oakland Raiders fan, let's get into them, man. They are an absolute fun team to watch. You kind of covered it and said it. But the first thing is this kind of goes into it. I believe the running back should be up for the offensive rookie of the year. I really do. And Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, I firmly believe that he's the offensive rookie of the year. The only one that I even think could be in discussion for taking that away from him is Kyler Murray. But besides that, I think it's literally just those two going at it for that offensive rookie in the year spot. But I watch pretty much every NFL game. I got Sunday NFL ticket. It's just that's how I spend my Sundays. Yeah. But I just watch Josh Jacobs, and I'm just like, oh, I get him now for hopefully 10 years because he's fun to watch. And something about number 28, man. Yeah. Adrian Peterson, Josh Jacobs. It's just.
Do you think that the Raiders? Do you think they've got a shot at the playoffs? Do you think even if they make it to the playoffs, how far do you think they're going to make it?
So I think the Raiders. Well, first off, you got to make the playoffs, and so they've got still on their schedule. They got the Jets this week, and they should beat the Jets to move to 7-4. They've got to play the Chiefs, the Chargers, and the Broncos again, and then they've got to play Jacksonville, and they've got to play the Titans.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they can go 10-6. I think that they can go 11-5, and I think that puts them in a spot to be in the 5-6 wild card spot.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that the Raiders have going for them is that they're going to be a very, very dangerous team. They early on, they had the 6 weeks in a row away from home. I don't know how the NFL allowed that to happen, but that's a tough thing to do. And then going into the season, it was like a consensus with, every, sports site, ESPN, all of those, that the Raiders had the toughest schedule. So if you go into the playoffs and you've played good competition, you're used to being on the road, and you're just kind of this fun, electric team, and, Gruden's going to be up there for Coach of the Year, too, with what he's doing. So they're going to be a real dangerous team. And if you look at the playoffs, it's kind of looking like the Ravens and the Patriots, can get those first 2-round buys.
Yep.
So then the Raiders will be going against the Chiefs in the playoffs. And then
that's a tough feat. Even if Patty Mahomes comes out, full bore, full-fledged, ready to go, that's a tough feat.
No, it is. But at the same time, if the Raiders get that 5 seed in the playoffs, you could get the Colts or the Houston Texans too.
Yep, that's true. And Deshaun Watson deserves a lot of props in my mind. I know the Texans, it's been ugly for him, pretty recently. But Deshaun Watson, I was enamored by him ever since I watched him at Clemson. I think it was me and my buddies, we were watching the national championship game. We were watching in college, and I stayed up. I was lame in college. Like, I would literally go to bed at like 8:30, 9 o'clock. I never stayed up. I never tried to. Now I'm a grown up. I stay up till like 1 or 2 in the morning. It doesn't make any sense. But, in college, I was the lame guy. I went to bed pretty early. But I stayed up for that national championship game because I wanted to see Deshaun Watson take care of the Alabama Crimson Tide. And he did. And it's kind of funny. I think that these last couple of weeks, I don't know what happened against the Colts, and I don't know what happened. Well, the Ravens are a good team, and so are the Colts. But if you're going to ask me to pick between the Ravens and the Colts, the Ravens right now are absolutely I think they're the best team in the AFC. I think they are better than the Patriots, and it's infuriating to me. Maybe you saw this too on some of the NFL power rankings. How are the Patriots still ranked number 1 above the Ravens? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like it's gonna be like the same thing with like LeBron James, and it's the same thing with like top players in the league. Like, nobody's ever gonna be like count Tom Brady and the Patriots out. And I guarantee you, if they played again, everybody's gonna say Patriots are the favorites. Patriots are gonna win that game. If they play 10 times, everybody's gonna say the Patriots are gonna win 6, 7 of those 10 times. So I think that is. But the Ravens have clearly shown that they're the real deal.
Respect.
No, they do. They 100% do. But it's one of those things where it's like at the same time, Lamar Jackson, still, young in the league, could make a mistake, whereas Tom Brady in like an actual like playoff scenario could just absolutely dominate.
I think it would be really cool, like kind of a little bit of a rematch, because I know Lamar Jackson got the best of Tom Brady and the Patriots in their first meeting, but I do believe that spin move that he put on Nick Vigil, I think they're going to be viewing that play for at least 20 years. Like, and if I'm an NFL player, and the highlight of my career is being on like that play and seeing just get spun out like that, I might retire. Like, I might actually look into retirement. I've made enough money. I would probably buy a log cabin in the woods so nobody can find me, because pretty embarrassing play. But at the end of the day, this kind of brings us into our next thing here. Personally, we'll actually kind of skip over the Mitch Trubisky thing for a second here. And by the way, Tristan would love to debate that he couldn't be with us tonight. He had too much homework. Man, me and Garrett were saying we're glad we graduated. Excuse me, because we don't got to deal with any more of that. But Lamar Jackson, who would you take as far as the for an MVP conversation, or in the MVP vote between Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes?
So I really thought like right away that I was going to be like, why is Patrick Mahomes even even in conversation for this? He's injured. He missed 2.5 games. But so I got some stats right in front of me, just so everybody can hear this. QB rating, Lamar's got a 106.5 to Patrick Mahomes 110. Lamar Jackson's completion percentage is 66.3%. Mahomes is 65.6%. Passing yards, Lamar's got 2,258 to Mahomes is 2,800. Passing touchdowns to interceptions is 19-5 Lamar. Mahomes has got 19-2. In rush yards, Lamar Jackson has 781. Patrick Mahomes is 141. Lamar has 6 rushing touchdowns. Patrick Mahomes has 2 fumbles lost.
Yeah.
So when you look at total yards, because the QB rating and the completion percentages is so close that it's like,
pick your poison.
Yeah, you can't. But then you look at the passing yards and you go, okay, Mahomes has the advantage here. But if you go total yards, they're identical. And, I mean, if you look at the turnovers, Mahomes has got 4 total. Lamar's got 5 total. You got touchdowns going from 19 total for Patrick Mahomes, and you got 25 total. So it's a little bit of favor of Lamar. But why I'm still sticking with Lamar Jackson as of right now being my MVP is wins.
Mm-hmm.
You have to win. You don't win an MVP by being on a losing team. You don't even win Rookie of the Year by being on a losing team. You don't win any of those awards by being on a losing team mainly. You got to be on a winning team. You got to get that notice.
Mm-hmm.
And, the Chiefs are 7-4, but Matt Moore has 2 of those wins this year?
Yep.
So, I mean, Patrick Mahomes would have 5 of them, and Lamar Jackson has 8. Patrick Mahomes didn't beat the Patriots. Lamar Jackson did beat the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I lean right now to Lamar. But the fact that Patrick Mahomes has missed 2.5 games less than Lamar and has those stats is also very incredible, and I don't want to leave that out.
No. It's kind of funny. I'm looking at this, and I was a guy that what was it? The narrative that Lamar Jackson was, pretty good for a running back or whatever. I mean, I was one of the haters. I'm a man enough to admit when I was, I was wrong about a guy. I didn't know if he had an arm to play in the NFL. Like, I thought he was just, I thought he had kind of a lesser arm than Michael Vick, and I still think he's better than Michael Vick now. I think he has solidified that now with the win over the Patriots. I think it was a couple weeks ago. But looking at it right now, Lamar Jackson, I can't explain it. And I was talking about this with Tristan. He makes it look so smooth. I mean, when he's running, like, and juking and jiving and everything, it's literally, he's not even trying. And it's kind of one of those things I'm looking at Lamar Jackson. I'm just like, man, how unfair is that? Like, I could run a 40 in probably 8 seconds. This guy is just, the way he's running, it's just absolutely incredible. But then you got a guy like Patrick Mahomes on the flip side of that, who is not necessarily, I think Lamar Jackson's got, I think he's got him in the athletic department. But as far, when running the football, but Patty Mahomes, he can still sling that football. And I think that, his arm strength is just a bit better than Lamar Jackson. So when I'm looking at all this and I'm thinking of an MVP, I'm thinking of a couple things. Number one, your stats, those are a big thing. You said it too. You've also got to have wins. Those, to me, go hand in hand. Number one, okay, stats, they're pretty similar. The Ravens have the better record, so we'll kind of give the leaning there towards to the Ravens. But I don't want to count Patty Mahomes out yet, because he was a quarterback that brought the Chiefs to an AFC Championship game last year against obviously against the Patriots. And I think they were down 20-0 or something like that at halftime, and he had made him come storming back. Basically did his entire 3 or 4 or 5 touchdowns, whatever it was, in the second half. And from that moment on, I just told myself, before that game, I was asking myself, who in the world is going to be able to challenge the Patriots? And after Patty Mahomes played like that, I'm never going to doubt the man again. So, again, right now, I'm going to lean towards Patty Mahomes, just in the fact that I think he's going to really turn it on. Right now, obviously, it's Lamar Jackson. I mean, with everything he's doing, running the football, he's going to break Michael Vick's rushing record. Said it here first. Maybe not first, I don't know. But he's going to break his rushing record. And I think Patty Mahomes is going to come back, though, and kind of give him a run for his money. Let's see here. What about, and this was something we skipped over, Mitch Trubisky. The Bears a couple years ago traded up a pick to get him with. I'm looking at it, and we looked at it, and we thought that they could have literally, I think, just waited at that. I think that number 3 overall pick in the trip, number 2, to get him. Is it time to move on from Mitch Trubisky?
Yeah, you definitely have to. When Mitch Trubisky got drafted, I'm one of those guys that I feel the NFL scouts and all that, they pay too much attention to the combine and not actually what these kids do in college. Like, for instance, you were saying that, you stayed up to watch Deshaun Watson dominate Alabama. Like, the closest thing you're going to probably get to an NFL defense, you get to watch those guys do that. And I was like, a kid out of North Carolina with, a barely above 500. And it's the same thing with Josh Rosen. I was like, dude, Josh Rosen, I wouldn't draft him. I just wouldn't. I just don't think he's a winner. So I've been that's one of those things I've been like, Mitch Trubisky, as long as he's on the Bears, my dad's going to be happy because he's a Vikings fan and he's not going to have to deal with another Aaron Rodgers. And the Vikings are my second team because I like it when my dad's happy. So if the Vikings win, I'm all about that. So, yeah, exactly. And also, you're a fan of the Lamar Jackson spin move because you don't have to watch the Michael Vick play on the Vikings anymore now.
Thank God. Oh, that was bad. And it's funny because all the Vikings fans, and it's something I try to laugh about because I know the old-time all Vikings fans try to sit here and tell me, oh, you weren't alive for, back in 75 when they lost, 4 Super Bowls. No, I wasn't. But you know what? I was alive for the 1998 disaster, the miss kick. I was 2, but I didn't have the cognitive ability. Yeah, it counts. I was alive.
It counts.
And then the 2009 debacle with Brett Favre when he threw that game-losing interception. And then in 2017, when the Vikings totally just didn't show up for the NFC Championship game. So I'm getting kind of sick and tired of all these, older Minnesota fans. Oh, you weren't there. I've been here for 3 of them, okay? 3 missed shots at an NFC Championship game to go to the Super Bowl. I haven't even, you're right, I haven't seen them go to a Super Bowl yet, and my dad will be the first guy to try to give me crap for it. But you know what? I have been heartbroken just as much as these guys have. So now that, and you're right, you're absolutely right with the Mitch Trubisky thing. Dude's got 9 touchdown passes, 4 interceptions, and he's a guy, and I tried telling, I had a couple of buddies at work last year when I was working at Kessler's, and I was telling my buddies, I was like, listen, Mr. Trubisky is not a franchise quarterback. He's really athletic. He reminds me a little bit of Christian Ponder in terms of, because Christian Ponder was pretty athletic too. I would say Mitch Trubisky's faster than him, but I think Christian Ponder at least did better than Mitch Trubisky in college. I'm going to look that up right now, but I compared him to Christian Ponder because I didn't see the it factor. I didn't see, why he would go so high. But I mean, I could be wrong. I'm going to look at his college stats now. But who do you think? This is a funny thing. What about Cam Newton going to the Bears?
So here's the thing: is that I was going to say the Bears aren't going to get a draft one of those quarterbacks in the first round because they gave their picks to the Raiders.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to, and I just really quickly here, Khalil Mack's an absolute animal, but you can't pay a defensive lineman $23 million a year in an offensive league.
Yep.
And so when we got first round picks for it, I was like, awesome, let's do something with it. And right now the Raiders are doing amazing with their draft class. Like the Raiders have the best. The Raiders have the best rookie class of 2019. It's 2019 season, and it's not even close.
Mm-hmm.
But
let's go ahead.
Cam Newton's Cam Newton is.
He's an interesting one.
It's very interesting because he's injury prone.
Mm-hmm.
How much are the Bears going to have to pay him? Is Cam Newton going to be able to come back and be Cam Newton?
Mm-hmm.
How is he going to be with the Bears offense? I mean, it's a lot of things, but I say this right now. I'd take Cam Newton over Trubisky any day. Any day.
And I think they're both kind of similar in terms of athleticism. I think Cam Newton's a little, just when he's healthy, is a little bit more impressive because, I mean, he's like 6'5", 240. Like, literally, dude is yoked. And Mr. Trubisky, who is impressive, but he's no Cam Newton. He has not been to a Super Bowl, been to the playoffs, and didn't get the job done. But here's the thing. I still think there's a chance for Mitch Trubisky, even though I had to endure. Garrett, I had to endure dealing with Christian Ponder for way too long. And when I make that comparison to Bears fans, I know they're probably going to be mad at me. But I still think there's a little bit of hope for Mitch Trubisky. I know it doesn't look good. Like, I'm going to be real. You're going to find out I'm a realist. And so when I look at this, 9 touchdown passes, 4 interceptions. let's kind of go back here. He lost Jordan Howard, his best running back, of the probably. I would say he was one of the better running backs in the entire league, let alone the NFC North. And then let's see who's got a wide receiver: Allen Robinson, Tariq Cohen, who I believe is actually having himself a really good season. Even though I would hope I probably should have picked him up on fantasy, but hindsight's 2020. Taylor Gabriel though. And I'm looking down on these stats. I really don't see a lot of guys that are really that impressive for me. So I see why he doesn't necessarily have the huge production numbers. And then for me, as a Vikings fan, I think it was fourth game of the season when the Vikings played the Bears. We couldn't stop Chase Daniel. How does that happen? This guy is a career backup, but he looked like he was much more of a scheme fit for the Bears. And, I mean, now they're at the bottom of the NFC North. We don't necessarily have to worry about him anymore. But we couldn't stop Chase Daniel. How does that happen? Like, literally, I couldn't believe it. Like, I'm an angry Vikings fan, so I'll yell and throw stuff because I don't get it, That just doesn't make any sense. Oh, man, I'm telling you. But let's see here. So, Trubisky, you believe it's gonzo, it's over?
Yeah, I do. I mean, if there's another guy besides Cam Newton that might go to Chicago, the only one that really comes to mind would be Phillip Rivers.
Yeah. Let's think about this for a second. Okay, who would be your defensive and offensive rookies of the year? Give me a guy other than Josh Jacobs, because
Kyler Murray. It's Kyler Murray without a doubt. And then I would say after that, it's got to be between DK Metcalf, who's having a really good year with Seattle. And then I guess the only one I can actually think of that even comes to mind would be Montgomery.
Yeah, that's true. I think Montgomery, yeah.
But I truly think that it's Josh Jacobs, Kyler Murray, and then way below them would be Metcalf and Montgomery.
What about this guy? Kind of caught me by surprise. Marquise Brown for the Ravens. Now that I was shocked because I knew he was good. I think ever since he was at Oklahoma. But I knew he was good, but I didn't think he was going to take off this fast. Obviously, first-year wide receivers I think have it harder because they're still trying to kind of learn some things, with their quarterback, still trying to get going. But this guy, I got to give him some props. Because I was a guy at first, I thought, I don't know, because Lamar Jackson, I thought he was, again, I didn't know how his arm was going to be this year. So the fact that, Marquise Brown has 4 touchdowns, 400 yards, almost 500. And DK Metcalf, like you mentioned, has 5 touchdowns. And the Vikings lose to the Seahawks in a couple weeks. I'm already calling it because I just feel like, I don't know. This is everything a bad game should be for a Vikings fan. Okay, it's in Seattle. Okay, you're going up against an MVP candidate in Russell Wilson. Okay, 2 bad things that could happen. Okay, but then the third and final thing, the Vikings never play well coming out of a bye. So this is going to be such a heartbreaker for Vikings fans. I'm calling it. I've gotten to the point where I'm mentally getting myself ready because I know what's about to happen. I've been down this road before too many times, Garrett, and it's getting very frustrating because it's just the life of being a Vikings fan. But I know how this is going to end, and actually a lot of my Vikings friends are coming out and telling me that the Vikings could win. There's no snowball's chance in hell that that's going to happen. Okay, because they've got to absolutely dismantle, and they've got to dismantle everything that he does in Russell Wilson with the defense that they have, and they're just getting shredded on the defensive side of the football, and I just don't think it's going to happen. But anyway, let's kind of get back on topic here. Defensive rookies of the year, who do you have?
So this is one that is a lot tougher than the offensive one. There's 3 that really come to mind. Nick Bosa, who's probably the favorite right now. And then Josh Allen from Jacksonville.
Yep.
And then Devin Bush for Tampa Bay is having a heck of a year. And the other 2 on my list that I had, I kind of picked 5 for kind of each just to talk about. Darnell Savage is having an incredible year for the Packers.
He is.
And Brian Burns for the Panthers is having a really good year as well.
Mm-hmm.
But,
you meant Gardner Minshew for the Jaguars?
No, Josh Allen. Are you talking about for offense? Are you talking about offensive? No, Josh Allen is their defensive end.
Really?
They got him out of Kentucky.
Wow, I did not know that. I'm gonna have to look at this. I didn't even heard this guy.
The Raiders picked Cleveland Farrell over Josh Allen.
Okay. Oh, Josh Allen. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I remember that. Yeah. I remember this kid. Also, what did it surprise you? The Raiders had 3 first-round picks, and Josh Jacobs. I knew the Raiders needed a back. Cleveland Farrell. You want to talk about a guy that nobody had? Like, I hadn't heard of him, like, because I'm a big draft nerd. I look at everything, and I was looking at him like, okay, that absolutely just opened up everything else for everybody, like for the teams after that, because the Raiders didn't take an offensive lineman, which I thought they probably would. But Cleveland Farrell, I did not think he was going to be worth that, but he has 3.5 sacks. He's learning. What's been your take? I know you said their draft class for the Raiders has been pretty good. But I forgot to ask you, what do you think about the first 3 picks? Have they all panned out?
Okay, so it's not really fair because Jonathan Abrams got hurt in the first week game, but Jonathan Abrams is electric. He's a player that 15, 20 years ago would have been a top safety in the NFL. He's got to kind of learn, how to hit people so he doesn't break his, body like he did in week 1. But his energy, his ability to, from what I saw in a short sample, I'm incredibly looking forward to him returning next year. Josh Jacobs could be the steal of the draft.
Yeah.
As far away as the first running back taken, I think it was maybe the 24th spot that they got him.
Yeah.
And then Cleveland Farrell, I understood it, but there's a part of me that was kind of nervous about it. But at the same time, like when I watched Cleveland Farrell in college with Clemson, and like I said, my main thing is not the NFL Combine, but actually seeing like how these guys do. Cleveland Farrell just dismantled Alabama's offensive line like it was nothing. So I was like, you know what? Let's give him a chance. And right away it was looking like, oh man, he was a bust. But these last 2 weeks, he's been incredible. The guy we got a 3rd round out of Eastern Michigan, Max Crosby.
Yep, I noticed him too.
He is so fun to watch. When we drafted him, I was like, Eastern Michigan guy, okay, this is something I don't really know about. Let's see how he does. And then, if the Vikings ever get to do a Hard Knocks, you're going to learn what it's like to get to watch your team in Hard Knocks and how much more enjoyable Hard Knocks becomes. Because in watching that, I was like, Max Crosby broke his hand in their first preseason game and didn't want to get taken out and actually finished the game. And I was like, that's the kind of grit that I want on my team.
Absolutely. Oh man, I don't know. Too many good things would have to happen, or maybe bad things would have to happen for the Vikings to be on Hard Knocks. I don't know, man. I've experienced them all as a Vikings fan, ups and downs, lows and highs, and everything. We actually need to talk about the elephant in the room, Mr. Gronlund. We need to talk about the Myles Garrett whole situation. Now, you want to talk about my luck, both as a Vikings fan and just in general, my luck. We literally got done with last week's podcast right after that happened. So we didn't get to talk about it. Or no, excuse me, right before that happened. And I remember thinking that, come on, you couldn't have waited. I was watching the game on my phone, and it was literally with 8 seconds left. Myles Garrett suspended indefinitely. Absolutely shocked about that. Number one, I know, I was lucky enough to play college football. And, the one thing I look at it and I think, in high school, I actually got flagged one time because I did a personal foul. And it was like, we're in a playoff game, second round, we're beating them pretty bad. And it's 30-7. And with I think it was literally a minute left. And I got a personal foul, and the coach, I went over to the sideline, and my coach ripped me a new one. I was like, man, coach, why does it matter? We're down. I mean, we're up by 30, and we're going to go, we're going to the next round. And he goes, it's the principle of it, no matter how emotional, and maybe you could definitely agree with this. Football is a very emotional game. There comes a time when, tempers flare, things aren't going your way sometimes, or just the fact that, football is so emotional. That's one of my most favorite things that I love about it. Kind of looking at it, looking back, I made the wrong choice, but I would never do something like this. I would never try to. Because Myles Garrett, I first got to start up by saying Mason Rudolph started this whole thing. I don't care if Myles Garrett was absolutely in his face all game long. That's his job. He's a defensive end. He's going to be on you all game long, just how he is. I do want to say he did tackle him to the ground. That was slow. Ball was gone. I think Mason Rudolph should have gotten upset, but I really think, and I saw this whole helmet thing, trying to rip his helmet off, and I don't know what to think, because I'm looking at this thing, and he's trying to rip his helmet off. The other guy's, he's trying to get up, and he rips his helmet off, and obviously does what he does. I'm looking at this. I think Mason Rudolph should have been suspended, number one, even though I just picked him up in fantasy because Patty Mahomes is on a bye, And I'm just looking at this. Mason Rudolph should have been suspended. What do you think?
So, I mean, when you look at it, like in the whole play in general, because a lot of people don't get to see the whole play in general. They just watch Myles Garrett swing a helmet at a guy.
Mm-hmm.
But when they're going to the ground, you can see that Mason Rudolph's hand is actually in Myles Garrett's helmet. Now, if it's in there on purpose or just in there by that happening, but I believe somebody said like he got his eye poked or something like that, and that's kind of what set Myles Garrett off.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know suspension-wise. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, if he got it, I'd be like, yeah, like, you get it. Like, you got to, like, it happened. Like,
yeah.
But, if he didn't, I was like, he definitely should get fined for what he did and how he acted.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was even like kind of funny. Well, I don't think it's, funny, but I just thought it was like when you think of the thought of like there being a rule in the NFL saying like you can't swing your helmet at somebody, you're kind of like, that's a no-brainer. Like, why is this a rule? Like, this is such a no-brainer that this is. It's like, is there a rule saying you can't like take your cleat off and try to cleat somebody? Is that a rule in the book too?
Like, I think about Happy Gilmore and Adam Sandler saying that he was literally the only guy that ever took his skate off and tried to stab somebody with it. That was so funny because like I look at this and it just reminded me of it. Happy Gilmore is a classic movie. But yeah, you're absolutely right. So do you think they got the Myles Garrett thing right?
Yes, 100% they got it right, because if he hits him with even a different part of that helmet or does anything, like we're talking about a freak human being where if he hits Mitchell Trubisky maybe with a different part of the helmet, could have cracked his skull and possibly killed him, like
the
NFL's got to do something about that. And I also think that Myles Garrett needs to be suspended even into next season to prove a point. Like I mean, has there ever been another time in NFL where somebody's swung a helmet at another player? I don't
think so. No,
I don't think so. But I think the NFL needs to be like, this is never going to happen again, or else, because like, thank God he didn't, but like he legit could have killed him if he would have struck him with a certain part. Or
I mean, it's just unwarranted. Like, I couldn't believe it. Like, I know, again, I want to reiterate, I know tempers flare sometimes. Things don't go your way 100% of the time. That's just football. But my coach, when he said that to me, he said it's not about how what bad happens, but how you react. I remember him saying that, and I knew I messed up. So with this, Myles Garrett could have totally walked away, and the fact that he didn't, I kind of get, because he was frustrated. Marquise Pouncey, though, who was sitting there defending his teammate, I totally get that. I respect that, actually. I know he got suspended, and rightfully so, but I get it. I'm not condoning it, but I get it. I probably would have done the same thing. Maybe not trying to kick him, but I probably would have, I
think that's where it went too far, is with the kicking. If if he would have kicked him, he might have gotten like a 1-game suspension or, so, but yeah, I know I expect if somebody did that to my quarterback or somebody did, I would be furious if my team didn't defend my guy.
Absolutely. Okay. And this is another thing I want to kind of talk about. I know it's not on the outline, but I kind of want to bring it up because I work with some guys at the Unfiltered Sports Network, big shout out. And a lot of them are big Cowboys fans. And it felt pretty good. I was in Montana when the Vikings beat the Cowboys. And I thought the Vikings were going to lose, so I was glad that happened. I'm so tired of this Dak Prescott franchise quarterback talk. Go ahead. I know you can't hardly wait. Go ahead and say what you got to say.
The Cowboys are the biggest pretenders in the NFL.
Really?
Their wins are against it's the Redskins, the Giants. They got beat by the Jets. Their best win is right now against the 5-5 Eagles, but I was looking at their wins, and I'm just like, this team is not good. They lose every game, and I'm thinking their other win is actually against the Dolphins too, but they don't beat any good teams. They lose to the Jets, and then when they play like a team like the Vikings at home, they lost.
Nothing to lose.
Yeah, like I'm actually going to look at, and they play the Patriots this week, and I believe the Patriots are going to absolutely just slaughter them.
Mm-hmm.
But
I actually got to start off by saying here, I've had this debate on if Dak Prescott is a franchise quarterback. I want to start by saying I've seen some great flashes from him in the last 3 weeks. 3 touchdowns against the Giants here, and I'll actually go through his whole season. First 3 games of the season, though, I'm going to back up. I'm going to rewind here for a second, okay? In his first 3 years in the NFL, he had touchdowns seasons just passing of 23, 22, and 22. Right now, he's at 21 touchdown passes. Pretty incredible, right? Well, let's take a look at who the man played, okay? First game of the season, Giants, threw 4 touchdowns. You should have, yes. Okay. Second game, Redskins, defense that's struggling. Yes, 3 touchdowns. Congratulations, dude. Then he goes to the Dolphins, only throws 2 touchdowns against a Dolphins team that, quite honestly, I've said from the beginning, is kind of a JV team, even though they've won the last couple of weeks. I'll give him some props. And then he goes to play a real team in the Saints. No touchdowns and 1 pick. Now, I'm not saying that's all his fault because Zeke hasn't been amazing. He's obviously Zeke. He's one of the best running backs in the league, but he hasn't been amazing. And maybe that's play calling. Maybe that's offensive line play. Whatever it is, no more excuses, okay? Then the next week he plays the Packers, throws for over 460 yards. Very impressive until you check out the touchdowns and interceptions. 2 touchdowns, 3 picks. Goes to the Jets, throws for 200 yards, and no touchdowns against the Jets. I'm like, okay. And then goes against the Eagles, who the Vikings beat, thank God. A touchdown and a pick against, maybe that was when the Eagles finally got some of their secondary back, but the Vikings dismantled the Eagles with Kirk Cousins. So I don't know. I just don't know looking at it. Let's look at these last 3 games. The Giants, 3 touchdowns, dude. Obviously you should have done that. You threw a pick against a Giants team that, honestly, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs for the next couple of years, even though Daniel Jones is showing me some stuff. And then up against the Vikings, I'm going to give the man a little bit of credit here, actually, because he was the only thing that kept the Cowboys in the game against the Vikings, because the Vikings shut Zeke Elliott down from the beginning, even without their best run stuffer, and I believe without one of their better corners in Xavier Rhodes, and we didn't have Adam Thielen too. So the Vikings shut Zeke Elliott down, and we made Dak beat us with his arm, and he did for the most part, in my opinion. And then he goes against the Lions. Now the Lions aren't a bad team. They're just looking at it, he throws 3 touchdowns, over 400 yards, no picks. Really impressive. But I read an article the other day that said he is having one of the greatest seasons since Tom Brady's 50 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. What? This guy has played, I would say, I don't even know what the Cowboys record. They're like, what, 5-4, 6-4, something like that? Let's see here. Giants, Redskins, Dolphins, 3 straight wins against nobody. Okay, I'm sorry. And they had I believe they had 3 straight losses against a Jets team. Let's see. 1 against the Eagles. That was actually a pretty impressive win. I'll give them that. But these last 3 wins, the Vikings, these last 3 games, you're exactly right. They're too much of a pretender right now. And I'm still not ready to say Dak is a franchise quarterback. He's playing very well, don't get me wrong. But he does need to do it against the better teams. And I'm even insulted my Vikings a little bit there when I say that, because the Vikings defense has been probably top 3, top 4, top 5 for the past 4 years. So now the Vikings defense is awful, and you still can't get a win. Like, Cowboys aren't a real NFL team. They're not a playoff team, excuse me. No,
they're not. But they're a free win if they somehow make it in that awful division of theirs.
Yes. And I don't know. Could it be that the NFC East is probably the worst division in the NFL? Is that possible? I mean, there's some bad divisions, don't get me wrong. But, you got the Giants, who have, Daniel Jones and maybe 1 or 2. And then the Eagles are nothing to write home about, especially since the fact that none of their wide receivers can catch the football right now. And just looking at, there's a lot of, NFC East teams. Go ahead.
Ooh. So right now I'm just looking at the standings of all the NFC and AFC teams.
Yeah.
So, here's your NFC East teams: Redskins 1-9, Giants 2-8, Philly 5-5, Dallas 6-4. It's not even close that it's the worst. No. AFC, NFC combined. Yeah, it's easily the worst.
I look at it and I'm thinking, it would be different if Dak went out and beat even kind of a playoff team. He beat the Eagles, but again, the Eagles aren't. I really don't think they're even going to make the playoffs this year. If he would have went out and he would have beat the Saints, or if he would have beat the actual Jets, or went out and beat a good team, he does it against teams. Dak does it against great teams or teams that he should do it against. But then when it's time to answer the bell, that's why this game against the Patriots is going to be a big game, because there's been question marks, everybody, all the Cowboys fans are like literally like think this guy is the Dalai Lama and all this stuff and think that he should deserve a contract extension. Well, Mr. Prescott, this is the game that you need to prove it against the best team or one of the best teams in the AFC, playing against a really good Tom Brady team. Tom Brady might have had a little bit of a drop off, but we'll shelve that for the second here. You have to go out against that team and you have to take care of business. I don't care what anybody says, because I'm looking at it right now. I really don't think that with how he has played against these subpar teams at best, he has earned any respect yet. And again, I said he's having a good season, but against some pretty chump change defenses. Let's be real about that. Like if he barely had 3 touchdowns, he should have put up 60 on the Dolphins. There was actually a point where it was a game with the Dolphins. Like you can't be a franchise quarterback and tell me that that's the case. You know what I'm saying? Like I just don't think that he's a franchise quarterback. What do you think? Do you think he's a franchise quarterback?
I hope the Cowboys sign him to a contract extension because then I know the Cowboys won't be a team that I have to worry about for the next so many years. And I've actually got a little friendly wager with the buddy from back in college saying that I said the Raiders will win a Super Bowl before the Cowboys do. And we got a little fun bet for, when that happens, whether it's, in a couple of years or if it's in 20 years, but it's just a little fun bet that we always get to talk about back and forth. But I mean, I don't think he's bad by any means.
He's not Mr. Trubisky.
No, he's not. No, he's not worth, top salary. I'll take Derek Carr over Dak at any day. He's good, but you gotta also realize that Kellen Moore, being the offensive coordinator for the Cowboys, is throwing the ball more, so Dak gets to make his stat line look a little better too. And I don't think Zeke's getting the touches that he probably should be getting.
They're running it all up the middle, and I'm thinking, okay, because they tried that against the Vikings. They tried to go outside with it, but then Ifeadi Adenabo blew that play up. And I mean, I'm just sitting here thinking, okay, if I'm the Cowboys, the Vikings had probably one of the better run defending defenses in the NFL, and probably one of the worst secondaries. I don't know why. It's like, I think it was like second or third and like 4 or 5 or something from like the Vikings, like 30-yard line. Like they could have won this game, but they choose to run the ball on two straight downs. I think they were trying to catch the Vikings by surprise, and the Vikings instead go make a play. But if your quarterback is shredding the Vikings, I think he almost had 400 yards. I don't know why you don't give the ball to the man that's been doing it all game long. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know. Cowboys just aren't right now. They're not real contenders in my mind. I just don't think they are. What do you think about, and I've asked some of my other Raider buddies about this, what do you think about John Gruden in his first year?
Okay, so you got to know it's going to be some growing pains. You got to know that it's, he's going to form the team the way he wants it to be. I knew year 1 was going to be bad. I said I was going to give him, 3.5 years to show me that this team's headed in the right direction. And honestly, I really thought it would be by, year 3 or, year 4 where, that'd be the make or break and they'd be able to do it. Well, we're in year 2 and we're looking pretty good by it. So I expected year 1 to be a dumpster fire. I was okay with it. I said I want my draft picks and,
built to their draft.
Yeah, and that's what you got to do. And then you pick up a good free agent here. Like we got, Trent Brown on our line from the Patriots, and he's a monster. And, I mean, that's just what you got to do. And I love what he's doing. And the fact that he's doing it a lot quicker than I thought personally he was going to makes me, excited for the future.
And this is, what's your opinion on Derek Carr? Because there's sometimes I see like things of brilliance with him. Like there are sometimes I'm like, he makes a throw that I have to replay. And like, I got to know how he made that throw with the touch, the spin, the accuracy. And then there's other games where I'm just like, I don't know what's going on. Like, what's your take on him?
Okay, so that 2016 season was kind of his coming out party, where he was fun to watch. The Raiders were going to be like 13-3. They were awesome. Christmas Eve, he's in the game against the Colts, breaks his leg, and from there, it's like if you break your leg the way he did, he was able to play, the whole next season, but I truly didn't believe that he was going to be anywhere close to 2016 Derek Carr that next year with the broken leg. And he wasn't. And then that very next year, which would have been 2018 last year, he's got a brand new head coach. He's just finally, fully recovering from this broken leg of his. But Gruden has literally just been like, yep, we're going to throw everybody away and we're starting like fresh, brand new. I knew that he was going to be a check down quarterback that year. And now, you see this year, if Antonio Brown would have been such a fairy, this team would be so incredibly good. Might have 2 more wins than they do right now if they had Antonio Brown. So in the NFL draft, I'm hoping to get, a guy like CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah.
Because that's really what, we're that close. We're a primetime receiver, and maybe another spot on defense away from becoming possibly a true powerhouse in the AFC.
Yeah.
But like this was like the year that everybody kind of was like, hey, Derek Carr, like if you don't play well, like there's a possibility Gruden's going to use one of these first 2 picks on one of these quarterbacks because this draft class is going to be an amazing quarterback class in my opinion.
Yeah.
But Derek Carr this year, he's starting to show that 2016 thing. And that game against the Chargers, that Thursday night game against the Chargers, where I was like, right here, right now, I'm learning if Derek Carr is going to be 2016 Derek Carr. And he marched down the field and he got the game-winning touchdown, just like he did all those times in 2016. And I'm like, yep, we got our guy back. And so if we can give him more weapons, he's just going to get better.
What about this Darren Waller guy? I was watching him. I think it was the Vikings game that he really came out. I was really impressed because, the Vikings typically are pretty good at guarding tight ends. This dude had 13 catches for 130 yards. I remember thinking, what? And then he got a carry too. I'm like, I never heard of this guy. I think he didn't. I don't think he even had that many catches before that. No, like he literally had, let's see here, 18 catches before that. He's got 56 catches this year. Like, where did this guy come from?
So, that was even like news for me too. Like last year we had Jared Cook, and I know the Raiders really like to use their tight ends. Even if you check with our backup tight end, Foster Moreau, I probably butchered his last name. We got him from LSU in the draft. He's got more like 3 or 4 touchdown receptions this year too, so he's doing really well. The Raiders really like to target their tight ends. Darren Waller, you've seen how freakishly big this guy is, and then he's
6'6".
Yeah, and not only that, but he's quick too. And that's
he can run.
That's a linebacker's worst nightmare. That's even a safety's worst nightmare. And so he does a really good job of getting open, along with the Raiders. Having designated plays for him to get him open.
I just gotta say that the Raiders actually really surprised me this year, and I know that they went to Minneapolis and they lost, but I'm not really. I've learned to not brag as a Vikings fan. Like I've learned that if you brag, God will make you modest, and it actually was kind of evident by that Denver game because right out the gate, I'm like, okay, Dad, and my dad is. He likes to say he's a bigger Vikings fan than me, but I will never let that man say that. I'll never let him undertake that. And it's kind of funny because, going to that Denver game, I'm thinking, okay, the Raiders, I believe, beat the Denver. So I was like, we beat the Raiders. I'm kind of one of those guys that look at like who everybody else beat and, okay, we can beat them type deal. I remember it being down 20 nothing at halftime. And I'm thinking, I was like, this was literally how every Viking, like there was one performance every year where the Vikings looked like they got off the plane wrong or they didn't go over the playbooks. Like, I don't know. Like there's always one game every year that looks like, I don't know, they just didn't want to show up. And that was how the way the first half was shaped up to be. And then the second half, like that was one of the most impressive comeback ones I've seen from the Vikings because I remember just sitting there. I'm like, okay, they went down right away, scored with a touchdown to Irv Smith Jr., who scored his first touchdown in the NFL. I remember thinking, okay, Now you got you get kind of back in the game, and then I believe Denver went on a I don't know what it was. It was like a 5 or 6 minute drive, eating up the clock, and I think the Vikings had to score 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, and I'm thinking, okay, they made him kick a field goal, and the Vikings went and took care of business. That is unlike any Vikings win I've ever seen, because usually if they get down that much, they're done. They're going to go into the bye week at 7-4. Not exactly great right now. I mean, they're just not looking great. But they came out in the second half. I got to give them props because the defense came together. Kirk Cousins, who has been under a lot of scrutiny, and well deserved. Let's be real. But at the same time, this dude has answered the bell. I'm hesitant to ask this question to a Raiders fan, just because. No, I'm just kidding. What's your take on the Minnesota Vikings and just the way Kirk Cousins has played as of late? Personally, I think it's going to end at some time because we're Vikings fans. All good things come to an end. And so what's your whole thing about this Kirk Cousins situation?
Oh, really, really quickly, whenever just to get to this Denver Bronco game, because my dad's a huge Viking fan, so I talked to him a lot about this type of stuff. I was looking at the spreads, and, I saw it was like 10.5. The Vikings were the favorites. And I looked at him, and I was like, this feels like the Buffalo Bills game from last year. And I was like, I feel like this is a Buffalo Bills game, like where the Vikings look like in every single position, better than the Broncos, better than the Bills. The Vikings, this should be like a no-brainer, but I was like, something stupid is going to happen. And we were hunting last weekend, and we got done hunting, and we got into the car, and we knew something was really bad because the Vikings were going to punt, and I could hear all the Vikings fans booing, and I was like, and you could hear Paul Allen on the radio, and I was like, oh, yep, I was right. This is like a Buffalo Bills game. And I was like, well, how bad is it? 17-0. And I was like, it's a Buffalo Bills game, man. But at the same time, it was kind of funny because I'm an Oklahoma Sooner fan, and they just came back from a 28-3 game and won it. And so I looked at them, I was like, it's a week for comebacks, man. So, hey, let's see what happens. And lo and behold, as much as I thought they were going to allow a touchdown those last 3 plays, I was like, yep, done. So that's my take right away, how I thought that was kind of funny, how I was like Buffalo Bills game, Broncos game, but they were able to turn around, give it credit to it. Really quickly, I can't think of a quarterback that has taken like the scrutiny that Kirk Cousins has and went, yeah, I need to play better, and then has played as well as he has. I don't know how many of his last games, 4 or 5 games, he's only thrown like 1 pick. He's averaging, over 300 yards. He's got I think 9 touchdowns in that time span too.
Yep.
Every single time Kevin Stefanski has him do a 3-step drop, I want to throw him out of a window because it's just asking for a sack.
Yeah.
I wish they did more rollout plays with Kirk Cousins.
That's what my dad was saying.
I wish they did more shotgun plays with him. Every single time they do a 3-step drop, all I think is that he's going to get hit and he's going to fumble the ball, and I'm just going to shake my head and be angry for something that I can't control. But at the same time, you got to give Kirk Cousins credit where credit is due. Yeah, the Vikings paid him $84 million. But right now he's 8-3, and there's a bunch of teams that would die to be at 8-3 right now. Yep. And I'm going to say it, but technically the Vikings are a Super Bowl contender team. They're a team that can win the Super Bowl. They just are. Mm-hmm. They got the offensive weapons to do it. They've got the defensive players to do it. And that's just a fact. But, I mean, the Vikings are a Super Bowl team. But, I mean, when I look at the NFC, I think there's 5 teams that could make it to the Super Bowl. You got the Saints, you've got the Packers, you've got the Vikings, you've got the Seahawks, and then you've got the Niners. And then at the AFC side, you're thinking Patriots, Ravens, Chiefs, So and that's something I love about the NFL is that it's not like the NBA where it's like, oh, we're going to have 3 straight years of Warriors, Cleveland. And in the NFL, it's like, well, it's probably going to be the Patriots, and then the NFC is just going to kill each other to be
I know
that part of it. But I like to think on the bright side of things. I try to stay positive. I think the Dallas game was important for the fact that it was a primetime game. It was a road game. Kirk Cousins played well in it. Mm-hmm. Then same thing is the Vikings struggled, and when the Vikings struggle, they struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, is Kirk Cousins going to be able to bounce back from this? Well, normally I would have said no, but I was like, let's see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Kirk Cousins ended up with 300 some yards, 3 passing touchdowns, had a 82% completion percentage. I think he went 29 or 35 or something close to that.
Yep.
Phenomenal. And it's like I said, I think the Seattle game, is it in Seattle?
It's in Seattle on Monday night.
Yeah, this is gonna be the game where I think we find out truly are the Vikings
contenders.
And that's what it's gonna be. And you're gonna kind of get to see, okay, Kirk Cousins on the road, another primetime game, and it's against Seattle. Let's see how we do it. And then really quickly, we haven't brought this up yet about the Vikings, but Danielle Hunter does not get the love that man deserves. That man does not get talked about by anybody. And I thought during the Dallas game that he would get talked about so much because of the what he's able to do stats wise. And then even like on plays where you don't have stats, he's always doing something. Danielle Hunter is amazing. That dude is somebody that I wish the Raiders had on their line. But at the same time, I'm one of those guys it's kind of like, I kind of like that he's not being talked about because then he's a shock. He's a surprise. And I love it about him.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I absolutely agree with that because, I mean, I think it was a couple years ago when the Vikings drafted, I think they drafted Jerick McKinnon and they drafted Danielle Hunter. And Danielle Hunter, keep in mind, only had like 2 sacks in his college career or something like that. Like, it was wild. And I remember this kid coming out and, like, if you just look at this dude's arms, you are, wow. Like, you are scared. Like, you, like, my dad said a joke. I'm not going to say it on air, but it was absolutely hilarious because, I mean, you just see that guy in a dark alley and you're running the other way because just a big guy, athletic. I read a story about him as well that he could run. One of his buddies like tagged him or something, and he ran down his buddy in skates, and that's when his football coaches noticed him. So I mean, this dude, he's fast, his arms are huge, he's mean, and I've really noticed he's really used his hands a lot better. I think that's what really has separated him. I think he's got 8.5 sacks, leading the Vikings defensive line. That he's always on the field like he should be. Thank you for saying that because everything I've noticed with this guy, it's been absolutely incredible. Especially when you consider this guy was a 3rd-round draft pick. He had 2 sacks in college. That's coaching, if you ask me, because if you look at, you got a guy with raw talent. Okay, he's 6'5". He's what? A 250, 260, 270, whatever he is. He can run a 4.5. Okay, how can we develop him? First season, I think he had, 6 sacks. And then the next year, he had 12 sacks. And then he starts the next year after they get 7 sacks. I don't have any stats open. This is me just being a lonely Vikings fan nerd. And then he comes back last year. I think he had, 14.5. And this year he's got 8.5. So he's absolutely thank you for saying that because I thought I was the only one noticing this. Like, seriously, if teams don't double team Danielle Hunter, bad things are going to happen because he usually wins the one-on-ones. He's even doing it against La'el Collins and the Cowboys. Like, he was going against the probably the number 1 right tackle in the NFL and winning pretty consistently. So him and Danielle Hunter too. Like, I was pretty happy to see Danielle Hunter like really bounce back because, or excuse me, Everson Griffin. We already talked about Danielle Hunter. Everson Griffin. You know what? That dude, he's got big arms. So that we've got. In my opinion, maybe a bold statement here, but I feel like the Vikings have the best defensive ends in the NFL in terms of pass rushing. Production. So maybe I'm wrong about that, but
I mean, you got Linval Joseph too, which is just a disgusting defensive. They're actually. So we talked about defensive lines really quickly. I actually had really quickly. I'm just going to give out 5. I had San Francisco, New Orleans, New England, the Rams, and then I had the Vikings. That was my 5. I'm not going to say what order I had it in, but that was my 5.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was I was so impressed. Like the San Francisco 49ers, all their defensive lines, most of them are 1st-round draft pick. Nick Bosa, they're DeForest Buckner, all those guys. They're all hands. And I'm just thinking, man, wow, this is incredible because you don't really you maybe see 1, maybe 2 1st-round draft picks, but 4 on that defensive line, absolutely incredible. Obviously, the Vikings are in there. They need a second defensive tackle other than Linval Joseph. Don't get me wrong, Jaleel Johnson has absolutely played well for him in his absence and in Linval Joseph's absence. And to Shamar Stephen, he's not a household name, but he's a guy that'll go in there and do his job. Nothing special though. I'm telling you, when the Vikings had Sheldon Richardson, they had to know where all four of those D linemen were because they were terror. I think they had 50 sacks last year, and I don't think the Vikings are quite going to get that this year. But still, the Vikings defensive line, and I mean, it just kind of trickles on down. Like the defensive line sets the tone. But no, I think obviously you have to talk about the Vikings, you have to talk about the 49ers. But it also comes down to all the other teams when we talk about defensive lines. In the NFL, and it sets the tone, like I said. So I don't know. I had kind of a tough time kind of looking at it because I felt like so many defensive lines can get overlooked. I still think the Rams have a really good defensive line. Aaron Donald is like out of this world. Like I don't know why this dude isn't talked about way more. I mean, the Chicago Bears defensive line, like come on now, like they are. I would say that Khalil Mack last year should have probably won like pretty close to MVP because for what his impact was on the field, it was absolutely incredible. So I think there's a lot of different defensive lines out there that get slept on, but I was glad that a non-Vikings fan gave a shout out to Danielle Hunter. Thank you for that because low key that made my night. I appreciate that. But no, I think that's all we got here. Do you have any other comments you wanted to make, big guy?
Not that I have at the top of my head. Love being on here. Thanks for having me. Hopefully, if you ever need somebody to come on, I'd love to come on again. Absolutely, man. It was great. A lot of fun having you on. We'll look to Leo. We'll definitely get you on again. Had a great time. Once again, everybody, remember to subscribe. And also, one more thing before we go. Maybe you can answer this too, Garrett. I took a bath tonight because it was the first time since I did it since I was like 8 because I wasn't feeling well and I thought, okay, maybe that'll be make me feel better. Baths are so slept on. Like I really think that I hadn't taken one since I was like an 8-year-old. So I always take showers because you want to conserve water and all that, and I get that. That's why I started taking showers. But I took a bath for the first time in 15 years. And people, please remember to comment on this as well. Are baths better than showers? Like, are they slept on? Because I believe they are. Because I was sitting there, relaxed. I was good. I realize I'm really, really hairy. I don't know, what needs to happen there. But just baths are slept on. Like, what's your take on that? Are baths slept on? You're absolutely correct. Baths are slept on. When I had pneumonia, I took a few of them just to feel better. I literally said, whenever I get my house someday, I'm definitely gonna have a hot tub because it's one of the best relaxing things possible. Yes, and I'm thinking my girlfriend makes fun of me because I think I'm gonna start looking at bath bombs. So like I'm gonna be like a really feminine like guy, but that's okay. You know what? You cannot diss on it because absolutely makes it a whole different experience. And I had a bath tonight and I was like Socrates, dude. I was sitting there thinking, wow, this is incredible. Like, why haven't I been doing this for the last 15 years? Well, you know what? I guess we're all allowed to make mistakes. I don't know. This is why the podcast got moved from 7 to 8, right? Yeah, exactly. No, it was kind of funny. Tristan was, like I said, he was busy with stuff, so I understood it. But again, man, thanks for having me on, man. It's always a great time. Once again, people, remember to like, subscribe. Also, please comment on which is better, baths or showers. And yeah, just everybody have a great night.